All right, so last night I was laying awake really, really late, right? I couldn't sleep and I kept wondering about all the people that are out there fighting over the same jobs, whether you're educated, not educated, old, young. There are only certain amounts of jobs in our society at any given point, most of which none of us want to do. And that reminded me of something that Blue sent me yesterday. It's an older video, I think it was from 2013, in which The Onion is talking to six people who all apply for the same marketing job. Every one of them was like, you know what? I'm the best candidate. I'm the best this. I'm the best that. I have the experience. They all went through 6 rounds of interviews. And at the end of wasting all their time, the job actually went to the friend of the owner's son. That's how this world works, people. Whether you go to college or you don't, everyone can work the fry later at McDonald's. Where do you think I'm going to be on Tuesday morning? Serving fries, working the cash register, cleaning the floors, making crappy hamburgers that look nothing like the picture. Why? Because there are only certain amount of good jobs in our society, and most of the proletariat will never see a good job. I'm a perfect example of that. I spent most of my adult life at the university preparing for a career that was never going to happen. And for most of us, when we go to college, that's what happens to you. You're preparing for something that's never going to happen. And that's the cruel nature of today's society. Because from the moment you enter the education system, the public education system, you're always going to be told the same thing: idiots don't go to college. But what do you do when idiots do go to college? I've said this throughout my entire college career that 9 out of 10 university students do not belong there because they do not have the right mindset to become scholarly people. Most people go to college because they feel like they have to. Their parents told them, society bullied them into it, and yet there they are, sorority girl, frat guy, a person that doesn't need to go there, a person that won't benefit from it in any conceivable way. I have 4 underwater basket weaving degrees, and not a single one of them is worth crap. All of them are just toilet paper to wipe my rear end with every single day of my life. Let's get into today's monologue. You ever notice how applying for jobs feels like a career move and more like a scratch off ticket? Maybe I read that wrong. You pour hours into your resume, cover letters, LinkedIn flexing, only to find out the job went to the boss's nephew who couldn't even spell resume. They tell us to stand out, but how are you supposed to stand out when 14,000 other perfect candidates are crammed into the same cattle chute? At this point, the only real skill you need is being born into the right family. And last I checked, there isn't a certification program for that. There is no training to meet the right people in this world. And every person I have talked to about resumes for since I got out of school, since 2017, they're like, you need to put more action words in there. You need to make your resume buzz. You need to get people excited about your resume. But when you show up at McDonald's and you put on your phony smile and your dirty, disgusting, stained uniform, and you look at a customer that thinks that you might actually be mentally retarded, right? I mean, you don't think very highly of the person that takes your money at the gas station or at a restaurant or at a Starbucks where they can't even get your order right. Come on, Timmy. I said large iced tea, and you gave me a medium. What's wrong with you? Why are you embodying the stereotype of a person that doesn't care that works in retail? Because let's face it, when you work at McDonald's, you don't care. You know why? Because there's no reason to care. Your boss is going to force you to care with a 10-foot pole, but at the end of the day, when you go home, the reality is that you know that your career at Starbucks is going to be very short lived. Tomorrow, you could be driving around for Amazon Flex, or even worse, at the Death Star for Bezos, doing the exact same motion that Claire on the road said drove her insane and into her car, let alone having a roach infested apartment. But a person at her age, because she's not a spring chicken anymore, if the Amazon warehouse drove her to, as a metaphor, to live in her car, how bad was that job? It must have been awful. And I can attest to it. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you ask yourself, how can I do this one more day? And then all you have to remember is all the faces of the homeless people you saw while you were driving your car to work that morning and how you don't want to be one of them. It's a hell of a motivator, people. Talking point number one. Let's be real. Your resume isn't a golden ticket. It's a headstone for all the hours you wasted trying to prove you're professional. 14,000 people all think they're perfect candidates, which basically means perfect is worthless when everyone has it. The only section that matters is family connections. And unless your dad golfs with the CEO, you're just polishing your rejection letter. I have spent large amounts of time in my life looking for a crummy job. Any person right now who's been unemployed for over a year, and I know a lot of you out there, and personally, I know a lot of people who haven't been able to find any sort of work in over a year. And the reason for that is you show up at these interviews with the attitude that you are better than everyone else there. The reality is you're not. Whether you're pumping gas, you're cleaning the bathroom with your own toothbrush, or you're wiping someone's rear end, you're not better. Job interviews are about hiring people that you can work with. And for the most part, none of us like our coworkers. Susie Rottencrotch isn't particularly partial to the other Susie Rottencrotch that's working the cashier while she's making hamburgers. I have been in so many places where people can't stand each other. But just like your family members, you can't pick your coworkers. And no matter how much you dislike going to your work, I assure you, you will dislike not being able to afford to eat even dirt because you're that broke. The vast majority of people that need help right now, financially, that need money and not jobs, they can tell you, they can attest to the fact that things are getting harder for people who need food. Because when there aren't people to donate because they need money, then that means that you are going to find yourself skipping meals. If 1 in 6 people doesn't know where their next meal is going to come from, imagine that. Imagine that's the level of hunger in a first world country. Why? Because the jobs don't pay anything. We don't need jobs in this country. We need more resources for everyone at the bottom, which every corporation will tell you no. When Walmart's willing to throw away perfectly good expired food just to make certain that their employees use their food stamps in order to buy the food so that Walmart can continue to profit from making certain that you stay poor. Talking point number 2. Job postings are written like a bad dating profile. Energetic, self-starter, team player, thrives in fast-paced environments. Translation, they want a desperate worker who will smile while getting crushed. You can have every skill on earth, but the company will still hire Chad, whose only qualification is being the boss's kid's drinking buddy. This is really what it comes down to. I had one of the contractors that works for McDonald's. He came in one day after Gen Z had bailed. He's like, you got to hire him. You just absolutely got to hire him. Why? Why did I absolutely have to hire him? Because he wanted him out of his house. He was tired of supporting a kid that was going nowhere. And it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of educated young people out there who need jobs and that don't have people who are out there actively looking for jobs for them. In fact, in college, I met this girl, and the girl wouldn't look for a job herself. Her mother was posing as her, looking for jobs, and then she would tell her to go to the job interviews. And sometimes she would go with her to the job interviews because she knew her daughter was just too dumb and would not take the initiative to look for work. Why? Because, in her own daughter's words, the job isn't worth the pay. And her mom was like, well, you've got to get a job. And when you don't have to work because you're not worried about starving and you perfectly happy living at home because your dad's rich and he will continue just to give you money, well, the mother isn't keen on their daughter doing nothing. But that's the world we live in, where parents think that their children can just go out there and get any job and they won't have to help them. Because a lot of parents, I would say that the vast majority of parents with Gen Zero children are aware that they're going to be supporting their adult children for the rest of their lives. And that's no joke. Because what your Gen Z children can make in this economy is equivalent to about rent. And that's every hour of work worked that month. That's why I've been telling you guys that 40 hours is now part-time. You're looking at 100 to 200 hours per week of $14 an hour work in order to be able to pay your own bills. Parents still don't believe that the world has changed. They still believe that their children, because they paid for their college and they paid for them all the way up into the point where they were supposed to become self-sufficient, should be self-sufficient. I assure you, they are not. And they never will be because of this job market. Unless you can find your child the job through your own connections. And we're not talking knowing someone that owns a Subway, because that's not going to get you out of paying your children's bills. We're talking about real $150,000 to $250,000 a year jobs for a 20-something-year-old. Which, if you're not laughing already, you should be. Because remember, this channel is about humor, about poking fun at a system that definitely likes poking you. Pound Town just isn't a place. It's an experience. When you show up at Pound Town, you know that the beginning of every workday starts in the same way. Your tighty-whities drop down to between your ankles. Surf City, Death Star, Evil Corp, they all have the same daily routine. You got to make certain that you're ready for the day. You're flexible. Your joints, you move around your joints. You get warmed up for work like an industrial athlete, and you prepare. Especially when you have to reach back there and grab your cheeks, because every job isn't going to pay you what you think that what you need. It's not even what you want. Take, for instance, that friend that got that job in the sales department a year and 3 months ago. I remember the day. We were floating across Saguaro Lake on paddle boards, and she's just gotten hired that morning, and she wanted to celebrate by going out to the lake. So I took the afternoon off from work, and we went, and I rented a paddle board, and we were just cruising across the lake, and suddenly she came to the conclusion that, oh my God, I'm going to be paid $16 an hour at this job, and my rent's $2,000 a month. How am I going to get by? And I just looked at her and I said, you're not supposed to get by. And she's like, oh no, I got to call and renegotiate for at least a couple of extra dollars. They said no. And she looked disappointed. And she looked at me. It's like, how am I going to survive? Well, you better get a lot of commission, because unless you do, you're not going to be able to make it. And she's making $4,000 a month on through that sales job, working a lot of hours and screwing over a lot of people, because people who work in sales don't care what they sell. As long as you agree to it, they just move on to the next person. It's one of the most unethical things you can do is work in sales. Anyhow, let's get back on track with talking point number 3. We keep hearing work hard, stand out, hustle like it's some magic spell. But the truth is, everyone already worked hard. Everyone already stood out, and everyone is still broke. The meritocracy is just capitalism's bedtime story, told so you don't notice the job went to Becky's cousin before you even hit apply. The system isn't broken, it's working exactly as it's designed, and you're not invited to win. Well, isn't that sad? That's one of the cruelest things I've heard. You're not invited to win is exactly how I felt once I got out of college. You apply and apply and apply, and you go to these ghost jobs that the company doesn't even plan on hiring. And the jobs where they are planning on hiring, they already have a candidate. You're only there because HR told them that they had to hire two additional people, and you feel it in the resume. I was interviewing for Marcus Networks in between the bug and starting a new job. I went into the job interview and we talked about fishing, we talked about where we like to go, what we like to catch. It was just like three dudes just talking about the outdoors. I knew I wasn't going to get the job from the moment that I walked in because jobs like that, they're a rotating door. You come in, you come out. Even McDonald's has a 150% turnover rate. Why? Because once you start working in a place and you realize how hard it is and how much more you're going to have to work extra on top of your 40-hour work week, it is the most demotivating thing that you can experience in the workplace. And all of these fresh Gen Z college students that still believe those slogans on the side of the bus or those ads that you get while you're reading the news about how your life is going places with these jobs, if that were true, if jobs were really going to guarantee you a nice spot at the top of the middle class, wouldn't everyone do the same thing? And that's what we have right now. An oversaturation of jobs that used to be good. The technology field was very good and high paying 25 years ago. The people I worked for were making bank, and they knew they only had to do a fraction of what I currently have to do for work. I mean, I'm talking about 10%. You're talking about guys that only had to do one thing. Now, when you show up at McDonald's, you better know how to do everything for the same pay of the year 2020. Why? Because it's super saturated with people who have every cert that you could imagine. Security, network, CompTIA, Microsoft, Cisco. That's just to get yourself into an entry level position. They will still dangle that carrot over your head telling you, you know what? You can work your way up. And the reality is those jobs are already full. I did a job interview with Avnet. This is a few years back for some sort of desktop technician for their laptops. And the guy said, you know what? You have all the right skills, but until you get that cert, we're not even going to consider you hiring you for a $16 an hour job. He's like, give me a call when you get that cert. And I was just like, really? I just laughed at him. And he just looked at me like, hey, I'm just a recruiter. I don't give an F about what you do. I have a checklist and I've got to check this off. I know you can do this job. I know that this job is beneath you and that you're not going to stay here long because the job pays $16 an hour. But my sheet says you have to have a minimum of this cert. And I'm like, I've interviewed people with that cert before. They're not qualified to work the fryolator. Good luck. They don't have a choice. Most of these people that have a recruiting department at any large corporation, they don't care what you do or what you know. They're there to fill out, to check the boxes on what the potential employer wants. They interview you completely as a person that could meet the minimum qualifications for a janitor or landscaping, every low level. You just have to have the thing on your resume that they want because the hiring manager has said, This is what we want. Now find that person. And this is where people who lie on their resumes get in trouble. Because the recruiter may give you a pass because you have this on your resume. But guess what? When you walk into work and the manager looks at the menu and says, Millennials team, why does your hamburger not look like the item on the menu? And I'm like, because I don't know how to do that. I just put that on my resume. And they'll look at you like, let's give this 5 days. And if you keep making hamburgers that look like something your dog threw up, and they keep expecting you to make the menu picture, well, you're not going to be there long. And I've met a lot of people who've gotten into a lot of trouble, not because they their job got them in trouble, but financially. Lying on your resume can get you financially into a very, very bad place. And that's why people always tell me, oh, just lie your way to the top. It's like, no, eventually someone's going to notice that all the things you put on your resume you can't do. And this goes for everyone. From the lowest to the highest level, most people's job set is sufficient to land them a job working at In-N-Out Burgers. I mean, over the past few years, the people that I've seen trying to get out of retail into something better with nothing in their background are the same people that are creating phony pay stubs in order to qualify for an apartment. That's really what you're doing. It's creating a phony pay stub. But with that said, let's get into our closing monologue. So here's the truth. Your resume doesn't matter. Your degree doesn't matter. Your team player energy doesn't matter. The whole hiring process basically is capitalism's version of American Idol. Thousands audition, one wins, and it's always the producer's cousin. They'll keep selling us the dream of mediocrity while handing out jobs like family heirlooms, and you'll keep blaming yourself for not being good enough. But the punchline is this. The system was never designed for us to win. It was designed to make us keep playing. It's the lottery. Everything in your life that poor people can touch is basically a scratcher's ticket. You scratch, you lose. But what are you supposed to do? Sit on your hands and lose continually? Eventually, you're going to run out of money for scratcher's tickets, and you're going to get hungry, and you're going to have to take that desperation job. Working at McDonald's isn't a choice, people. It's a requirement to keep yourself alive.